So, Stacey, I got a CD in the mail the other day.
Okay. What, did you join Columbia House?
I did not. But I did. I participated in a Pledge Music campaign to help. So pledgemusic.com is a place where you can go support artists who are putting together their CDs, and the music and the money that you put forth helps them make their music. And then as a result, you usually get a signed CD in the mail, or if you get more, if you give more, you get like sheet music or, or a some kind of gifty that goes along with the creation of this new thing.
It's like PBS.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So I pledged to help out a woman named Emily Saliers. Does that
I know that name.
I mean, it does mean something to you because you're a fan. So Emily Saliers is one half of the Indigo Girls, and she was working on her very first solo album. Now, I met Emily more than a year ago. She was doing her very first solo gig for Women's Fest, which is this big lesbian get-together in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and our good friend Faye was helping to put that on. And Faye called me and says, would you like to pick up Emily Saliers at Baltimore Washington International Airport and drive her to Rehoboth and back? And I was like, yeah, I'm busy that weekend. No, I totally leapt at it. Of course, that morning I woke up and I was like, this might be the stupidest thing I've ever done. What if she's terrible? Like, what if she's an awful person? I'll never be able to. And I listen to the Indigo Girls all the time. How will I ever? And, of course, she was lovely. And her wife was wonderful. And her little daughter was adorable. And we had a great road trip back and forth. And when the Indigo Girls played with the National Symphony Orchestra just a few months ago, I wrote to her, and a couple friends who went with me to the concert were also huge fans. And, of course, she let us come backstage and say hello, and I got a big hug, and she got to meet everyone. And my friend Bobby got to tell her that you helped me survive college, and that was like so it was great. Anyway, this CD is fantastic. It's called Murmuration Nation.
Okay.
Murmuration Nation is the name of the CD. You can download it on iTunes. It doesn't have the big record label behind it because it's not an Indigo Girls CD. So she had to do this outside of her regular contract thing. She's on tour right now, emilysaliers.com. Murmuration Nation, if you want to download it off of, I believe it's probably on Amazon and Google and all those places, but I get it from iTunes. I also have a signed CD now. But it's amazing. Such a great record. 5 stars. Go out and get it because she's wonderful and she also makes really wonderful music.
Hashtag good music tip.
When the chaos of popular culture makes your brain hurt, you really need relief in the form of a transfusion of analysis and humor. It's time for a Poperation. Join hosts Eric and Stacey as they dissect popular culture one bloody organ at a time. It's just what the doctor ordered.
Welcome to Poperation. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
And this week we are talking about a very particular kind of character that we see pop up in pop culture a lot, and that is the strong black woman. I have a couple of friends in the gay community, white gay men, who think it's hilarious to define themselves as a strong black woman.
Is this the part where you say, some of my best friends are strong black women?
Well, no. I wasn't going to go there. Some of my other friends of mine who are not black women just think it's so funny for them to say, well, honey, I'm a strong black woman. And it's like, no, you're really not. You're actually not. But there is a friend of mine who is a strong black woman. Her name is Amena Johnson, and she has feelings about this particular kind of character. Not that it's bad. That it's bad to have someone out there who looks like you in pop culture who is representing strength and showing you that you can be strong. I think Amena has always had some feelings about the fact that in pop culture, if you are a black woman, you can't be anything but strong.
Yes, and that is sometimes it feels very cage-like.
Yeah.
You're put in this corner that you only have a certain amount of choices.
A gilded cage, as it were, because it's a good stereotype in a way. I mean, if part of you is like, well, if you have to be stereotyped, we might as well have a stereotype that depicts something that's supposedly a positive attribute, but when you can't be the other thing, it's still limiting in some ways. And so Stacey and I sat down recently and had a really interesting conversation.
She's fabulous.
With Amena. And so that's what today's show is going to be, is our conversation with my dear friend, who is also a diversity and inclusion consultant person like me. She's in this industry, so she thinks about this stuff a lot. And I thought we had a really great time.
Let's listen.
So welcome, Amena Johnson, to Popperation.
Well, thank you, Eric.
So Amena and I go way back, Stacey. We met each other not as far back as you and I. We met each other we were just talking about this, 99, 2000.
It's 99, 2000. Maybe
Faye
like is listening. Not Faye. Maybe it's, I don't know. Who would?
Lisa
would know.
Yeah.
Maybe she listens.
Anyway, we are here today to talk about strong Black women.
Hello, right here.
Yeah, that's why we brought you on, because you are a strong Black woman, and we figured you would be someone good to talk to about this. So kind of my first question is, isn't that a good thing to have lots of strong Black women all over pop culture? I
mean, yeah, sure. Like, who wants to be weak? But I think that what it does, and it's not just about pop culture. I know this is Popperation. We're talking about pop culture. But strong Black women is a lot of things in pop culture.
Can you define a strong Black woman for me?
Sure.
Aside from being a Black woman, you know what
right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. I think in Black culture, African American culture, some people would say, but I'm going to say Black because, when I was raised, it was Black, and then we became African American, which is fine, but I'm Black.
I just want to say, I saw Red Fox do a bit. Have you ever seen him do the crayon
I don't know
bit?
if I've seen him do that one.
And it was about, he said, there is a Black crayon, but there's not an African American crayon. Now, I totally understand that I am totally paraphrasing what he said, and it was actually funny how he said it. But that resonated with me, and I wondered what the majority of African American / Black people feel about that. Whether that's how they feel. That's how he felt. He said, "I'm Black. That's what I'm going to call myself."
Well, I can't speak for everyone. And I feel to be honest, I probably feel equally as African American as I do Black. But the word that is more comfortable for me in casual conversation is Black, because that's just what I use.
Fair enough.
But I totally forgot the question. Oh, would it define a strong Black woman? All Black women are supposed to be strong, and we're supposed to carry the family because, those Black men aren't there. And, we don't cry, and we hold up, and you can say anything to us. And we're also very sassy and funny and all of those wonderful things. And it's, being strong is a great thing, right? But what being strong does is it means that you have a lot of weight that you carry around physically and mentally, a lot of stuff that you don't share because you're carrying everything for everybody in the whole community, right? So that's not good.
Do you feel like you're expected to take that on?
Absolutely.
And is there disappointment if you push back against it?
I don't. You say is there disappointment if you push back against it, and I just thought, I was like, who pushes back against it? I don't even know what that looks like to push back against it, to be honest with you.
Okay. If you said, I'm not doing that.
I don't know who says that, though. And I know that there are people who are, but to really be honest with you, I cannot describe. People have conversations about how silly it is and how we shouldn't do it, but we do it anyway. You know what I mean? People know that we shouldn't.
So when does it look like, though, when you're like, I need help today? I can't do this all by I'm sure you have those moments where it's
absolutely.
Just,
it's funny. I've been recently in conversation with people about the fact that I don't ask for help. I'm like, oh no, I don't ask for help. That doesn't happen. What it looks like when you need help, to be honest, I think other strong Black women peep game peeps game, and you're like, you know what? That girl needs help. Let me go help her. And usually if you're a strong Black woman, you might say thank you, or you just sort of acknowledge that, you helped me, but I didn't really need help.
Okay.
You might never say that. But, you know, you're like, thank you for your help. I mean, I didn't need it, but thank you for being generous. Okay. Because strong Black women are also generous.
Okay.
Also.
Okay. So if you get help, it's not because you asked for it.
No, absolutely not.
And if you give help, it's not because somebody asked you necessarily. Because you saw
you got it. You got it. You saw a need, because that's what we do. We strong Black women, we always give.
Right. But that's always been there. That's always been there, that strong Black woman, because even when you look back, you know, into when Africans were brought over here for the first time, it was the women who, I mean, yes, you had people, you know, guys had to be strong. I get that, all that. But the women, because you also only had to be physically strong, you had to be mentally. Yep. And you had to keep, as long as you could, as long as you were allowed to keep your family together, you had to do that in horrible circumstances. So then I go back to, so who were your role models? I mean, your role models are your grandmas and aunties and moms and all that. Those are the people that teach you how to be strong, right? Right. And teach you, you know, that, you know, not to cry. Not that, you know, we don't ever cry, but you can't be strong. When I was younger, I was told, and I don't remember who told me, some older Black woman in my life, could have been a relative or not, that nervous breakdowns were for white women. And we don't have time for that. Nervous breakdowns are for white women. I'm not kidding. That was white privilege. Hashtag white privilege. There you go. Nervous breakdowns are for white women. White people don't, you know, that's stuff white women do. We don't have time for that. And, you know, the therapy and all that, that's for white women. Black women we don't have time. Right. But the book that I read, interestingly, since you were talking about slavery, it's this book that I can no longer find. It's called Recollections of Slavery Time. And it must have been someone who interviewed someone who was a former slave. So this was probably written maybe in the 20s. I stumbled upon this book online in like the beginning of the internet. That's fascinating that somebody would actually think to do that. Right. And so this slave, he was a man, but he reflected on when he was a slave. And one of the things that he talked about is that his mother died while they were slaves. I don't know if I can't remember if he was on the same plantation or a different one, because even if you were on a different one, sometimes you communicated. Anyway, his mother died, and he said there was no funeral, there was no time to mourn. You know, we were slaves, and that just wasn't what we did. And not that I didn't necessarily know it before that day, and this was years ago I read this book, but it's like, oh, so that's why we don't have nervous breakdowns for white women. Because back then we weren't even allowed to mourn. Like, his mother died and they took her away. There was nothing. Go get back to work. When I say white privilege, I'm really not kidding. The hashtag was silly, but you're right. You don't have time because you're expected to do certain things at a certain time. There's no, I'm sorry, you can't be human. Right. You can't be human right now. We don't have time for that. But the danger in that, though, Eric, high blood pressure, diabetes, all those things are not just about the food we eat. They're about the stress that we take. But also, Black women, if you think about it, about our portrayal in pop culture, they're all extroverts. When have you ever seen a nice Black woman in the corner looking mousy reading her book? Well,
the one example I can come up with is the maid from Get Out, who, of course, we find out was an old white grandma. She had a white brain. Exactly. Spoiler alert. Sorry. Yeah, we already spoiled it. I listened. We spoiled it. We spoiled it. So, that's what I wanted to kind of get into, is like getting back to the pop culture thing. You know, one of the things that we've said a lot on this show is that a lot of people don't take pop culture very seriously. But we believe that it's actually really important. And so I wonder if this plethora of strong Black women, I put that in little quotes. If you can't see me, I'm putting quotes around strong Black women. If that has an impact on the way people, and both on the way Black women see themselves and are allowed to see themselves and the limited picture they get of what it means to be a Black woman, but also the way that people who are not Black women see Black women and kind of expect things from them. So we, with your help, before we got started, we kind of put together some categories of Black women, and we're going to go through those in just a second.
I have one quick question I want to ask you. Who do you remember? Because you're talking about everybody's sassy and everybody's out there, and you're saying that your role models were your mothers and your grandmothers and that sort of thing. But who do you recall being the first Black woman role model that was famously a role model for you?
This is going to sound so cliche.
It's all right. That's we live in it. Really?
Well, I remember I was 13 when that show came out. I think I was 13, maybe 12, but I'm pretty sure 13. Anyway, she was the first Black woman she had a talk show, and that was, Donahue was the only other person that had a talk show back then. And
That's true.
This Black woman is coming on talking about issues and her weight loss, and she's talking about big stuff. And she had a lot of money. I mean, at least in my mind, at 13, I thought, and she probably did. We definitely
at that point, I think she did. Yeah, I think she did.
And so it sounds really cliche.
But no, it's real. There's a reason why she is Oprah and has her own. She has several cable networks, not shows, networks. She owns networks and magazines.
Then it was just the show, and I was 13 though, right? Like I didn't get. Like I'm trying to think, and that's who comes to mind.
Okay,
Oprah.
Yeah.
Like, was The Color Purple before that show or after? It was after.
Just barely after. It was just barely after.
Okay.
It was like the show was on, but like she was kind of becoming famous for both of those things at the same time. So I remember when the show like really took off, it was, talk show host and Academy Award nominee, Oprah Winfrey. That was kind of the big kind of thing.
I'll just say this on Oprah Winfrey. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And I remember when she was on the news, she was a news person in Nashville. And I loved her. I watched her because she was beautiful. And she's still beautiful, but she was beautiful, this beautiful Black woman. And I loved her. She had, and this is why she was a hit. One reason, she has this wonderful charm that comes across the screen. And so you feel like you know her and you like her and you trust her. But I remember as a child, I would always want to watch whatever channel that Oprah Winfrey was doing the news because I enjoyed that. And but that was a long time ago.
Let me say this before the Black people start writing, and I'm going to do a disclaimer like they do on the drug commercials. I realize Oprah has some problematic ways, and some of you don't like Oprah. That's fine. When I was 13, Oprah was the greatest. But I realized that Oprah might be problematic for some of you. So don't write into the show to these nice white people and complain about the Black lady that came on talking about Oprah and saying she was her role model. You can reach me on Facebook as Amena Johnson, and we can talk about that.
But I asked you when the first one was.
You did.
And you said you were 13 years old. And our perceptions of things who she was when you were 13 was a different person than who she is now. But no, correct. In all fairness, you were a child.
I was a child, yeah. And faithfully, you remember like the after school specials, I'd come home because Oprah came on at 4 and I'd get home and I probably watched Oprah every day for a solid, I'm going to say 5 years, maybe not 5 because I started working at 16. So let's say 3.
Yeah.
But I would get home and I would record it though. I would record it on the VCR. I'm going to say 5, like probably till I went to college. Me and Oprah, I would record it and I would save them up and watch them on the weekends. It was great.
So that is actually a great segue into kind of the more fictional strong Black women that we were going to talk about today, because Oprah was a big part of that strong Black woman in The Color Purple. Sophia was a strong Black woman. She's a big part of that whole thing. But Sophia, Celie, Suge, was Squeak a strong Black woman? Maybe even in her way.
Let me tell you, Squeak stood up to Sophia.
Yeah.
What did she say? Oh my! What did Squeak say when they were in the juke joint? And Sophia punched her. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I'm gonna lose my Black heart on that one. Anyway, when Squeak stood up to Sophia, that takes some balls.
Yeah, so I think you've got this whole story like full of, because we had said, you can't really talk about strong Black women in pop culture without giving a lot of due to The Color Purple, directed by a white guy. Okay. This was before Ava was able to, get movies out there. So we made some progress, but
old enough, but yeah.
But yeah, we got to give Spielberg, I think, some credit for, but at the same time, we're talking about like the good and the bad that comes from this,
Well, in The Color Purple, there was some criticism of that movie because of the way it depicted violence and domestic violence from Black men, and people were upset about the portrayal of Black men. And clearly, and I know we're talking about women today, but clearly that is not the whole of Black men, but it does talk about strong Black women because they dealt with a lot. And, you know, that's the epitome of strong Black women, the things that those women were dealing with.
Yeah, and I think that there's sometimes, it's helpful, but then sometimes it's also, there's a double-edged sword where you have this kind of idea that abuse and hardship makes you stronger.
Yep.
Because sometimes it doesn't. I mean, sometimes domestic abuse does not make a person stronger. Like, that's just, no.
And honestly, Eric, I don't know. I mean, I think hardship, regardless of what it is, makes people stronger. But I don't know if it makes anybody stronger.
Just surviving something and getting through it. The idea is that you have a thicker skin when you get to the other side. And I don't know that that's always true. I don't know
that that's true at all, ever, honestly.
So a little bit closer to our thing was Waiting to Exhale. Was another thing full of strong Black women, particularly Angela Bassett's character. I always remember the fire in the car, her burning up all of her ex-husband's shit in the back of the car. You recently saw Girls Trip.
I did.
I have not seen this movie, but you had referenced that Regina Hall's character, Ryan, was kind of epitomized that strong Black woman.
The strong Black woman is often, someone whose man cheats on them, and they overcome. I'm just going to give some spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, sorry. Sorry. It's not that hard to figure out. Anyway, but Ryan's husband is cheating on her, and she knows it. Like from the beginning of the movie, you're aware. But they have built this empire, sort of like Oprah. And they've got products in a book and all these things. And so they are being the strong and smart Black woman she is. They are trying to keep up appearances because they want to make money. Right. But Ryan has these 3 friends, and they haven't seen each other in a long time, and they're going to go to the Essence Festival, which I think is probably the mecca for strong Black women. I haven't gotten there yet, but we need it. After this, I called my strong Black women friends.
Oh, I bet their ticket sales.
We gotta go.
The next, whenever that is just through the roof.
And we've always known that that's sort of where all the strong Black women go. We all flock to Essence. But anyway, they're going there, and she's going with her friends, and her friends are like, "Why are you letting him do this to you?" Because that's the other thing that strong Black women do is call their friends out. You call your friend out, like, what are you doing? You weren't always like, when they find out, they didn't know he was cheating. Anyway, but Ryan withstands this, and she's supposed to give this speech, like the epitome of the whole thing. And she's supposed to give this speech about how, relationships and how she and her husband do it. And also, her husband has the audacity to have the side chick there, like, around, and she sees her. So it's funny. It's drama. It's some drama, but it's also some funny drama when they run into it because, when they run into the side chick, they call her the Instagram hoe. I don't even know what the character's name was. It might be Instagram hoe.
I was going to say, it's probably in the credits, Instagram hoe. But she's... Hashtag Instagram hoe. I bet there's already one. I don't think I made that one up.
I'm gonna go look it up after this. Anyway, so she's supposed to give this speech about how wonderful their marriage is and how they keep it together, and then she ends up giving a speech about how let me tell you the truth. Let me, break all the walls down. I mean, that actually she's a strong Black woman, but in sort of telling her truth, in that end culminates the whole thing. She kind of does the thing like, you don't have to be strong. Not that people shouldn't be strong, but I don't know, and people can fight me back on this. We're lying. Like, it's all a lie. Like, not all, but mostly.
Is it the fact that because you're a Black woman, you're automatically supposed to be the strong Black woman, and thus no flaws, thus no insecurities, no doubts, and so when you then do have it, I'm sitting here listening to you tell the story, and I'm like, how cool to have all of this going on, and everybody's judged her and they're angry with her, you're saying, because she's let this happen. And then when she comes out with how she really feels and how, what happened from her perspective, you see she's just a person. Mm-hmm. And the strong Black woman that would be very hard to live up to 24/7.
Well, I think with like the public in Ryan's case, they're looking at her, but her friends, I don't know so much as they're judging her. They're just like, girl, we know you as, the strong Black woman that you are. And actually strong Black women don't do this. I think that's sort of another, what's the word? Oxymoron. Like, sometimes the real strong, what a real strong black woman would do would be to leave him,
right,
and do all of that. But because you've got to put on this pretend strong black woman, you're gonna stay with him, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna make the money, and you're not gonna embarrass whomever, your family.
Well, the decisions she made were based on other reasons that weren't necessarily obvious to anybody looking out from the outside in.
Right.
So, I mean, but again, I think that's with, everybody, is that we only see what they put out there for us.
Absolutely. And when we think about,
but that sounds like a really great character thing for them to do for her as as a character in this role that you have put her out there. She's a strong black woman, blah, 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 blah. And then you say, but, oh, yeah, by the way, she's human.
Yep.
And so maybe, I don't know.
And Ron's written a book, and I believe it's called You Can Have It All.
Oh, great.
That's the name of the book.
So actually, but that sounds like a depiction that's actually more helpful than some of the ones that we've discussed in the past, right? Because before you had like the Claire Huxtable, who was so unflappable in every single, you couldn't do a thing to Claire that, from the Cosby Show that would upset her or even ruffle her feathers. She always had the quick and witty comeback. And granted, that was a sitcom. Same kind of thing with Aunt Viv on.
I was going to say Vivian.
Although
not Vivian Greenlord, that's a singer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Vivian Banks was her name. And of course, there were two Aunt Vivs, and there's a whole thing about that because the first Aunt Viv, am I wrong about this? The first Aunt Viv, the black community liked a whole lot more, and then they replaced her with a softer, gentler Aunt Viv, and everyone's like, what the hell happened, Aunt Viv? Because she used to be kind of, and again, to your point, you don't see a lot of soft and gentle, introverted, quiet, nicer. Not that the new Aunt Viv was all quiet and nice and she didn't have any sass, but there was a sense of like, where did Aunt Viv with the hard edges kind of go. But two more kind of strong black women on TV that I think we have to hit before we take our first break. One, Cookie on Empire, Taraji's character on Empire is, and I did not watch a whole lot of Empire. I was staying with Terrence Howard. I met him once. Strange. So I just, he's strange.
We'll have to talk about more about that.
Yeah. So I didn't really get into Empire, but what I did do is I watched at least the first two, maybe I got into the third season of Scandal. So Olivia Pope.
Yeah, and I watched the first season of Empire, and I've only seen like 1.5.
Really?
Episodes of Scandal, and other people out there in the world, come get me for that. I'm not in Scandal. I'm not a gladiator, but I know who Olivia Pope is.
I mean, she to me is like, she suffers, but she suffers in her grandiose apartment with the biggest glass of red wine you've ever seen and a beautiful white sweater and a sad look on her face. But then she puts on her also gleaming white trench coat that looks like the lapels are so crisp you would get a paper cut if you like touch the corner of her lapel. And she marches out there in the world and takes, no shit and takes names and runs people down and then suffers quietly back in her apartment with her huge glass of red wine because she's sleeping with the president and nobody understands that. Okay, Olivia, great.
And in the 1.5 episodes that I saw, she did that. Yes. And so I get it. And I mean, I love wine. And
wait, that's your takeaway?
Yes.
From all of that.
I relate to Olivia because I love wine, and wine is great to suffer on the couch alone because you're sleeping with the president.
Okay.
That's what I take away from that. But both Cookie and Olivia Pope. I don't think you can say just Olivia. You got to say Olivia Pope. I'm sorry, Olivia. Don't come for me after that. Or don't start nothing, won't be nothing kind of women. Like, we don't come for me and I will not come for you.
Right.
Both of them are like, and they will come for you.
Yes, they will.
Both of them.
You will
come
die.
For you.
There will be blood. There will be blood on the streets.
There will be blood on the streets. Actually, there won't be blood on the streets, especially with Olivia Pope.
No, Olivia will have. Oh, she'll hide it.
And Cookie. True. I mean, Cookie too. Like, I really think
But here's what. Okay, so you talked about real quick here. We talked about Claire Huxtable and Vivian Banks. Those were from the 80s and 90s. And then you look at Olivia Pope and Cookie, which are 21st century.
They're very different.
They are very different. Here's my question to you. Were for those who are past tense, was Claire and Vivian, were they the right strong black women role models for that age? Did we need them in order to get to Cookie and Olivia Pope?
I mean, yeah, I suppose so.
But then let me also, before you go on with that, and I do apologize for interrupting on this,
fine.
but I'm sitting here going, with regard to Cookie and Olivia, are they the right role models for right now? So I guess my question, so you get my question, so I'll stop talking.
Well, I think when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about Claire and Viv, that before them we had Celie and Sophia. Right, and so they sort of took us away from this sort of mammy.
Well, there was also Florida from Good
Florida
Times.
Evans, you're right.
I mean, if you go, that's what I'm saying. That was the 70s,
right?
So it's like now the Jeffersons, but they had started from nothing, and then the in All in the Family, and then they grew.
Weezy, she was a strong black woman that probably was a little more introverted. But she wasn't glamorous in the way that Claire and Aunt Viv were. And like you said, started from nothing. Claire did not start from nothing. I don't know what Aunt Viv's background is. I don't think she started from nothing either.
Right. But I mean, it's one of those where when you look back at the history of what is being portrayed as this is your normal black woman, it's very, very different. And I'm wondering, do you think that they were good? Were they valid? I mean, I know Norman Lear with Good Times was trying to be real. He was, trying to he thought he was doing a good thing. But it's one of those where I as a white, again, I feel so stupid. I'm just this white girl. I don't know.
This is what I think. So Claire and Aunt Viv, I loved me some Claire Huxtable, but I didn't have that life. I never had that life. I still don't have that life. I liked them, and they were good. Even though I'm not Olivia Pope, and I've only seen the show 1.5 times, and I'm not Cookie. I have not, built a drug empire and then got sent to prison while my man,
Just for the record. Okay.
Right. Just so you know, I've not done any of those things. But I will say when I think about the people, like if I think about Claire and Aunt Viv, and then I think about Cookie and Olivia Pope, I relate more as the black woman that I am to Olivia Pope and Cookie. I can understand, and it could be just because now I'm an adult watching these shows as opposed to watching Claire and Aunt Viv when I was a kid and a teenager. But even like if I still think about it, like I didn't turn into Claire Huxtable. Like, my wife is not a doctor. I don't have a husband. I have a wife, and she's not a doctor. She's a teacher. That is like a total, like on the opposite end of the spectrum. And so even if I were to watch that show today, and, it'd be weird knowing what was going on. But if I were to watch that show today, I still couldn't relate to everything about that. But the 1.5 times I've seen Olivia Pope and the first season of Empire with Cookie, I get it. I kind of can imagine that life and those emotions I can relate to more. So I think what's happening is, and the Claire Huxtables of the world exist, right? And so the Olivia Popes of the world. And I think there's just...
Maybe. Are there a whole lot of super spies who sleep with the president? I don't know.
Probably not.
Yeah,
they're probably more Cookies. You're right. Probably. I know. Wow. Anyway, think of
that was a visual.
# more cookies, please.
Okay, so we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the a little more specific kind of categories that we tend to see black women pop up in pop culture. But we're here. I'm Eric. This is Stacey. We are talking today with Amena Johnson about strong black women, and we will be right back.
You're listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey. Take a deep breath. This may sting a little.
And we are back. This is Popperation. We're here today talking with my good friend Amena Johnson about strong black women, and we've already gone through quite a bit in terms of the strong black women that appear in pop culture. And by the way, we're talking about whether or not the strong black woman archetype is always helpful. I mean, I think it is in a large degree, but then it also has some drawbacks. The first kind of subcategory of strong black women we wanted to get into is what I call the sassy black friend, right? So there's a lot of times in pop culture you see this black woman who's kind of off to the side, who always kind of jumps in with a quip or something funny and kind of takes people down. And sometimes they're the sassy black friend of white people, and sometimes they're in a larger black context. And the first one that popped out to my mind that you had also noted before we started was Florence from the Jeffersons.
Oh, yes,
so we talked about the Jeffersons, but we haven't talked about Florence. So she was kind of the archetype for me of like sassy black friend, always there with a comeback, you know, and just when you see a woman in a sitcom or a movie or anywhere else, that's always kind of there and just there to provide a little bit of comic relief. And oftentimes, you know, it's not really there to move the plot along at all. It's just there to kind of be funny. What's your take on that?
I would say, you know, when I watch movies and TV, probably if I'm going to get annoyed, and Eric, you know me for a long time, I get annoyed about a lot when I watch movies and TV, but the sassy black friend is probably the one that burns me up the most.
Here's what the thing about Florence is, she did get a spinoff where she like owned a business or something. They did spin her off. It wasn't a huge hit, but she did get it where she was the boss. And I said it wasn't a big hit, but Florence did get her spinoff. And then I was thinking that actress also did 227, which was a different kind of black woman.
Yes.
Although the breakout star of 227 was probably Jack Hay as another sassy black friend.
Another sassy black friend.
Right? So there was another sassy black friend on Parks and Rec recently. Retta played a character named Donna Meagle. We both had to look up that name because like all I remember was just Retta because she just kind of, you know, was there doing some sassy stuff. There was you'd noticed there's another sassy black friend in Girls Trip.
Yes.
Dina, with no last name.
With no last name. It was so interesting because I had to look up the cast because I didn't remember everybody's name. And everybody in that movie had a last name except for Dina. It was crazy. The sassy black friend in real life, those of us, you always have that friend that's ready to fight. That's ready to tell somebody off. And that was Dina. And I mean, it was real in the sense it's like, yes, we always have that friend that you're like, stand down, girl. But like Dina was a sassy black friend in Girls Trip, what was interesting to me about Dina is that all the characters had these, you know, Lisa was a doctor, Queen Latifah's character was a blogger who her blog was kind of failing, but you know, and then we talked about Ryan already, who was fabulous. But Dina gets, again, spoiler alert, she gets fired from her job at the beginning of the movie, and you don't even know it's some office job. And she gets fired from her job. You don't really know. She's just always been that person, right? Like everybody else has some depth. But Dina has always just been the chick that will go off, pop off at the, you know, drop of a hat. And you know, she's sassy and she's got all these comebacks. And
but kind of the breakout star of this movie, right? Yes. I mean, I first was introduced to her because she was on some talk show. Was she on Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon? One of the Jimmys.
One of those Jimmys.
One of the Jimmys. And she told this whole story about when she took a swamp tour with Jada and Will Smith when she was high as a kite. And it was the funniest story. I was just like, who is this woman? She is hysterical.
Is this the same woman who said that somebody had a Groupon?
Yeah.
And that's the one where Will Smith and Jada didn't know what a Groupon was.
Yeah. They thought it was a big boot.
Correct. But which she said, which tells you a lot about, she said, I don't know how to deal with somebody who doesn't know what a Groupon is.
Right.
And then the last one, the one that kind of occurred to me, and you said she's not that sassy. And it's true. She wasn't. But it occurred to me that sometimes there's a sassy black friend in a more white context. And the first person I thought of was Stacey Dash in Clueless.
Let me tell you something about Stacey. So you know she's offended Auntie Maxine now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she came for Auntie Maxine.
Stacey needs to keep her sassy self, non-sassy self, away.
Yeah, she's not very... And yes, on 100%, everything you're going to say. Even again, I don't even know if you've thought it yet, but I'm going to agree with everything you have to say about Stacey Dash. But I will say in Clueless, I don't think she was sassy. She wasn't that sassy. She wasn't funny. She wasn't the funniest one. She had her issues with her boyfriend, and that was funny. But she herself, her character... was not funny.
No.
But,
no.
Yeah. No.
And I love Clueless as a movie. And Stacey Dash was okay in that. But I do think that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
And you know what? Stacey Dash is just not that great, so she probably couldn't pull it off. They probably should have given it to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, she had, she was in Mo Money. She was in a couple, she had a little kind of she had a little career going on.
She's a pretty girl.
She's a pretty girl.
She's a pretty girl.
Yeah, that's right.
Why she's a pretty girl. That's why she got that gig.
Pretty girl.
She's not the most talented thing. And
I would agree 100%.
You look in Clueless. You look at all these other actors, and I can't remember the guy who was in Scrubs who played her boyfriend. Mm-hmm. He's hysterical. His comic timing is freaking amazing. Oh, in every scene they were in, he blows her out of the water.
He carried her.
That scene. Name? I don't know that. Well,
I never remember his name.
Yeah, but that scene where they are driving on a permit and they end up on the freeway. That is about the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. But it's mostly him and it's Alicia Silverstone in the back seat that are carrying that entire scene. Stacey, and now not to get super political, but come on, Stacey, like this whole
Anyway, I don't even know that you can talk about strong black women without talking about Stacey Dash, because it's like she is the anti all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
because Maxine Waters, she came on, for those who don't know, Maxine Waters is a congresswoman from California who represents some of the poorest but also large black population of Los Angeles. And, she's been a very outspoken critic of our current president. And, I actually said at one point, I am a strong black woman and I cannot be intimidated, because people were telling her to shut up and calm down. And she was like, oh, no, and so she's kind of become a hero among a lot of those who are currently in resistance to the current administration. And and Stacey just recently, last month, said something about, this is what happens when a buffoon is, taking up her 5 minutes
Auntie Maxine was on Girls Rock, and Stacey Dash's crusty behind decided to come out on Twitter and say, I don't know, some bullshit. You told me I could curse, so I'm cursing. I'm going to get you that, or what is it?
E. It's an E.
We're going to go for the E for explicit today. But anyway, Stacey Dash's crusty behind came on Twitter and said something, called her a buffoon. Anyway, we couldn't have this conversation without talking about Stacey Dash, because the other thing that strong black women do is we will protect each other, and Stacey Dash, she better watch her back. I'm just saying. Somebody, Adina, is gonna come and get Stacey. Anyway, but Stacey Dash wasn't that sassy and clueless, but
she was the black best friend.
She's the black friend.
She was the black best friend. But it was also, the character was extraordinarily written white. I mean, you could have put any color in that. It wasn't
you could have
written for a black character. So, which I guess they picked a really good one for that. All right. Do you want to go to the ABWs?
I don't even know.
Okay, see, and now I feel really stupid. So a friend of mine, African-American, she said something about ABW, and I looked at her and I said, I don't know what you mean when you say that. She said, angry black woman.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that acronym, but okay.
See, I thought everybody knew that.
It could be, and
Stacey's
I just
don't know. Stacey's trying to be down with the people.
It could be, and I don't know. My friends will listen to me like, girl, you didn't know what ABW was? I sure didn't. I sure did not.
I didn't need to.
And I'm not strong enough to
I don't know
not
what to say.
That.
Because as I said, when she acted like everybody in the club knew, and I'm too pale to be in the club.
I might not be in the club all the time. Okay? Sometimes I'm not with Stacey Dash, but I'm in another room.
I don't know if she's an ABW. I think she's just...
Oh, no, she's a stupid black woman. Yeah, so
SBW. So in the ABW, the angry black woman, one person, this is funny that's on this list, because I've been watching the history of comedy, and they were talking about Red Fox, because he was very instrumental. I think that's another subject. Except we've also talked in the past about British TV shows that we are Americanized. Mm-hmm. And there was a show called Stanford and Son.
Sanford and Son?
No.
Oh, Stanford.
Stanford and Son in England.
Oh.
And it was Americanized to Sanford and Son.
Oh.
And I remember I would come home in the afternoon and they would have reruns of Sanford and Son. And I watched it every day because I thought it was hysterical, especially when Aunt Esther came in. Oh, my gosh.
Fish-eyed food. Aunt Esther. I mean, and I don't know. And like I'm like, is she angry? Is she sassy? I mean, the angry black woman and the sassy black woman actually go together.
Yeah. Although I think outside of pop culture for a moment, one of the reasons, why it's difficult for sometimes some black women to speak up in a more like corporate or, other kind of setting is that they don't want to be pegged as the angry black woman. It's like, I can't complain about anything because then they'll think I'm just some angry black woman,
Oh, yeah,
and I hear that. I hear that quite a bit, and so I just wonder, what is it perhaps in the context of our world, which pop culture is a huge part of that sometimes feeds into that. The idea that black women have a very short temper, Sophia from Color Purple gets into this a little bit because, you trip her one bit too far and you see the fist start to ball up and she's going to come swinging for somebody. And, it was a great comedic / dramatic turn, but it did kind of feed this stereotype that black women have very short tempers.
Yes.
And so, was Esther a part of that? Was she something that, did she teach us? Because this is the angry black woman, I think, is one of those things that almost, it's not about it's about how white people look at angry black women in pop culture and then have expectations that might not be fair.
Yes. I mean, Esther, I don't know. Esther just knew how to play the dozens with Fred Sanford and knew how to, she was always great at the quick comeback. I actually, wish I could be as quick with the comeback as
Most definitely. I also think they enjoyed that.
Yes.
That both of them, that relationship between the two of them, that's where they were.
Yes.
Probably grieving for her sister.
Yeah, Elizabeth,
his wife. But yes, and again, I don't know, and of course at the time I didn't know. I didn't necessarily categorize her as an ABW, but she was sassy, and so maybe that she goes into the sassy category because I don't know if it was anger so much as like in Harlem Nights with Della Reese. She's hysterical.
You shot my pinky toe.
She's hysterical.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was a hysterical.
I love her so much.
Movie. And Della is hysterical. And the thing I like about Della, even though I know we're talking about angry black women, which she was, what was that character's name in that movie? I can't remember. Della Reese in Harlem Nights. Everybody knows. Is that she had a range though. That's the thing I appreciate about Della Reese. She's not like some of these other black women where we get typecast.
Because she also appears in our very next category, which is the mammy.
Or the magical negress. Negro.
Yeah. So the magical Negro, for those who are not familiar with this, that's a real thing.
It is.
The magical Negro is something that's talked about in kind of pop culture theory a lot. And that is people like Bagger Vance, Will Smith, or the character that Michael Clark Duncan played in The Green Mile. And usually the thing about the magical Negro that's so like offensive is that, yes, they are like these wonderful, spiritually connected characters, but their magic is always in service to white people.
Yeah.
It's never helping them or anybody who looks like them. It's always, so Bagger Vance and Green Mile is kind of like that. So we also put her in that category kind of with Touched by an Angel.
Yes.
She was the angel's, the angel was actually the magical mystical one, but she was so
she was magical.
And she was, this person, but she was the earthbound one, right? Because Roma Downey was the angel, but Della Reese was the one who kept her. But of course, if you were going to have someone on Earth who could also talk to the angels, it was going to be this big spiritual black woman.
Yeah.
This idea of the magical negress was kind of in there in what she was doing. But of course, the original Mammy was, of course, Mammy from Gone with the Wind.
And the Mammy characters, and just as an aside, apparently Spike Lee coined the term magical Negro.
Oh, really?
I read that when I was doing a little research.
But they're all over the place. Olivia Pope is almost a magical Negro in some kind of way.
Absolutely. But I think when you think about women, Mammy, formerly known as Mammy, magical Negro, magical negress thing. But yes, you're right. Mammy
from Gone with the Wind.
From Gone with the Wind is the original. Mammy.
Now, first African-American to win an Oscar.
Yes.
So can't take that away from her. No. But this whole thing about how the entire time she's like just in service to Scarlett, that's how she exists. She doesn't have a life outside of how she serves others.
Okay. But here's a difference with Mammy and then some of the others that we talked about, including Della, the Touched by Angel thing. But also, I think we were thinking about Nell Harper in all of hers. But here's a difference. Mammy was a slave and didn't have a choice. And I guess that's where I kind of differentiate in that, yes, she was a mammy, don't get me wrong. But when you talk about the magical, I feel like maybe there's a choice that they're, Bagger Vance or whomever, they chose to help. Nell Carter, Carter was her name in the show.
I think it was Nell Harper show and her last name.
Oh, whatever.
Nell, give me a break.
Right, give me a break. She, she was helping this white family, and yes, she needed a job, but it's just, I don't know. To me, there's a little bit of a difference when you say mammy. She didn't choose to help.
There's that mammy archetype.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about Nell in particular, people have free will or whatever, but I think when it comes to society as a whole, there are just certain things that people expect from Black women.
Yeah.
So they expect us to be angry and they expect us to take care of them.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Gone with the Wind is, sure, yes, if we look at it from today's perspective, yes, Mammy was a slave, but she was portrayed in such a way that she would have chosen to be there if she could have, because she was so in love with this family. And when Scarlett was feeling poorly and Melanie comes over, she's just weeping.
It kind of put this vision, and so it's a vision that filmmakers have had to fight to get rid of, so that you finally have Olivia Pope. But you started because there are tons of movies back in the 30s where you had your Black maid. Often, especially after she won in the 40s, when she won the Oscar, they looked like her.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Imitation of Life twice. We had that Holiday Inn. Again. So all of that kind of, that was an image that just perpetuated over and over and over, which was this warm, wonderful, caring Black woman who was mostly caring for white people. And that kind of did perpetuate this idea of this is what we expect when we see, and it must be painful for Black women today to look at. I mean, it's just, it has to suck.
I think that you got two choices if you're a Black woman. You can be an ABW. Now I got a new thing I can say.
And you're welcome from the white lady.
Yeah, a white woman told me that. Look at that, y'all.
There's so much wrong about that whole
there's a lot wrong. I'm
scenario.
telling you, my Black card may get revoked after this show. And I'm going to blame you, Eric. You're going to have to take me in after this.
There's always room. Yeah.
I know. But I think that there are two choices when you're a Black woman. You can be an angry Black woman, or you can be a mammy or a magical Negro. Still today. So you can either be the one that's all sassy and sucking your teeth and doing all that, or you can be just the really nice and, like I said, strong Black, because angry Black women are strong and mammy we're all strong. Or you can be the really genuine and generous, I can't talk today, person that's always giving of themselves, more of themselves than they're giving to others in service to white people. We're going to do that for our family, whether we're angry or not. So I think those are the two choices that you have in life. And when you really think about Olivia Pope, so she's sassy or whatever, but she actually is in service to white people. I realize that that's part of her job, but that's part of the reason that makes her so magical, right? Because she's, doing it. Because when you think about mammies, even back, during slavery, they actually were the ones that ran the house. And a little side about me that I don't think Eric knows, I've been doing a lot of my genealogy and found out for sure, because it's in a book, that my third great-grandmother was a mammy. And the man that wrote the book said that, she gave the orders, to the kids. And so, you can be a mammy even giving orders. I think that's just Olivia Pope, in a way, is a 2017 extension of that. Cookie's not, because she's with Black folks. But I think that those are your two choices. So you can either be angry or you can be in service. And sometimes you can be in service and be angry. And Nell was kind of all those things. It was a funny show. It was a good show. I totally watched it. It was a good show. What was that, the 80s? It was a good show for, I sometimes look at that stuff now and you cringe. But, So anyway, There we go. We got a little serious. The room got really serious. Let's talk about Stacey Dash.
Well, we're going to talk about someone even it's going to make you. Yeah, this is going to be fun when we get back. We are going to take another short break, and then we've got one more category, and then just a strong black woman that could not. We could not talk about this person. Anyway, we're going to come back after a short break.
Open wide. It's your prescribed dose of Popperation with Eric and Stacey.
So we're back. This is Popperation. I'm Stacey, and I'm here with Eric and Amena, who is our friend we're talking about strong black woman. She is herself a strong black woman. And we brought her in to talk about the perceptions of what is a strong black woman, who is it, how is it that we put them out there in media to make them palatable a lot of times, so that, you make a movie, you make a TV show, you want people to watch it, you want to get the money for it. So sometimes you have to do things, but we also, we've talked about the sassy black friend. We've talked about the angry black woman, the ABW. There was some education that happened during that. We talked about the mammy. And the magical, what is it? The magical?
Well, the magical Negro, which we reframed as the magical Negress in this particular conversation.
So would our last big category go into the magical part called the sainted black woman? Wouldn't that kind of be part of the magical?
So this is where we kind of put Florida Evans from Good Times.
The long-suffering saint.
And Lisa from Girls Trip.
Yes.
You said there was a sainted black woman kind of in that. Jada's character was a little bit of the sainted black woman. And this is a note that you made on my own. Loretta Devine's entire career.
Yeah. Any role played by Loretta Devine is the sainted black woman or the long-suffering saint. I'm sure she's had other roles, but when you think of Stacey's like, no, you don't know. Loretta is always just a poor widow or divorcee or single woman who just so sweet and wonderful. She loves Jesus, and she just life just never goes her way. The same for Florida Evans, damn, and they could just not get out the ghetto. They just couldn't. Even when what's her name? Married the football player. What's her name? The sister. Anyway, I can't think right now. But I saw her in person the other week, by the way. Her name is Bernadette, something like that. Anyway, she writes books. But anyway, these women who just cannot, catch a break. And Lisa, I put her in that category because Lisa is a divorcee and she has 2 kids and she's a doctor. And she used to be, we didn't call it twerker back then, but that's the word, twerk queen of the year when they were in college, and she was always out at the Freaknik. But then she got married and then she got a divorce, and so she's become this woman that's walking around with hand sanitizer all the time.
Isn't she the one, haven't seen the movie yet, isn't she the one that actually ended up peeing on the crowd?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't do that on purpose. That was she had to pee and she was flying over the thing. But yeah, she walks around with hand sanitizer all the time, and and tissues. And so she's just become this very sort of homely, it's poor me. I've got to take care of my kids, and so I put her in that category. Yeah. I don't know if she's sainted in the same way Loretta Devine would be, or definitely not Florida. But I put her in that category because it's just you can't catch a break, kind of person. But she also in this movie gets her groove back, like Stella. Which is great.
Yeah. And, it just kind of occurred to me when we were having our last conversation. I don't think anyone, clearly not, I don't want to go on the record as saying that being strong is a bad thing, and that putting out pop culture references that says strength is, that black women can be strong. I think that all of us like to see role models of strength that look like us somehow. I do think that where it's harmful is this idea that we talked about, that does pop culture make it impossible then for black women to ever be at a place where they say, I need help.
Yeah. And then balance, right? I want to say Stacey Dash again, because there's Stacey Dash, and then there's Oprah, who I wouldn't put in the same category.
Yeah.
So it's just about variety, I think that's what we're talking about.
And occasionally seeing someone who's vulnerable, so you could look up at the screen and go, oh, that's me. I feel like that sometimes, because that's, I think when it comes to representation, which is a big part of where I kind of look at pop culture, is when you're hungry for some kind of representation of yourself up there on the screen. And if you only see one thing, and that one thing is always strength, it's great. And it's limiting at the same time, right? So we are going to have one kind of final conversation to wrap this one up. And Amina's sighing because she knows where I'm going with this.
I know where you're going.
We got to talk about Madea.
Do we have to?
Yes.
Do we have to talk about Madea? Because Tyler Perry gets on my goddamn nerves.
New movie coming out. I think it may.
Madea has a new movie coming out, or Tyler Perry? Is it Madea
both.
in space? Is she going to Mars? Because Madea does all kinds.
No,
of
I think it's another Madea Halloween flick.
You know what it is? I saw a preview for that. So for the record, and you know what, my black card is really gonna get ripped off right now. I hate Madea.
I don't think your black card will be ripped off because the same friend who gave me the ABW information absolutely loves Madea.
Oh yeah, I know.
So
some
I think that's a thing. But I get it because I've never liked Madea, and it had nothing to do with color of skin.
It's not a popular thing, but it is. I know people that don't like Madea.
Yeah. But what? So. But let's talk about what's the impact of Madea on the world? I mean, is it just silly? I mean, is it like our Jim Carrey where it's just
No.
It's like
First
dumb?
of all, this is my issue with Madea and a lot of Tyler Perry, mostly of his movies, is that it's trash. It's written poorly. The lines are not creative. It's awful. I saw a commercial for the haves and the have-nots, and I fell asleep. Like, it's awful. It's awful.
To me, and this is why, again, it has nothing to do with skin color. It is the stuff that's supposed to be funny to me doesn't make me laugh.
Right.
And then the haves, first of all, it's a horrible title for a soap opera. The haves and the have-not. What?
Guess what it's about? It's about a family that's split because some of them have the money and some of them don't.
Have not.
Right. Like,
it's awful.
Inventive.
It's
awful.
Absolutely awful.
And so I don't.
And he has one of the Dukes of Hazzard guy in it.
I've never seen the thing. I literally have only seen a commercial.
Yeah.
But. And Tyler Perry ruined For Colored Girls. Like, just ruined.
Oh, that was terrible. It
was terrible. It was awful. He ruined it. If you have never seen the real For Colored Girls, please see it. Because if you've only seen Tyler Perry, you're on stage. I don't even care if it's on a tape at this point. I mean, is there a film other than that?
No.
Okay, I don't care what you see. Do not, like, that movie, it's not that play at all. It's awful, and he fucked it up. As he does most things. But Madea... as a character, I mean, she's an awful character, but my issue with Madea and Tyler Perry conglomerate as a whole is the stuff is just trash.
Is it pandering? Would you say it's pandering to the lowest common denominator?
Possibly.
Because that's how I feel, and again, I have other things that are in this same category that Tyler Perry didn't produce. But it's to me, it feels like this, I can't, okay, and I've kicked this dead horse a lot, Big Bang Theory. I hate it so much. And I get that it is hugely popular. I think it's the number one, whatever. I feel like it panders. I feel like he goes for the lowest common denominator kind of joke. And that's why everybody thinks it's fun. That's why he has this huge, because he's doing, and I feel like Madea on the other side does that. He buys into the cliches. He takes that cliche and he puts it bigger. And
yes.
I'm insulted by it.
Oh, I'm absolutely insulted by it. So Madea started off as a bunch of plays.
Yeah.
They were these stage plays. I call them, and it's actually this line is from a play that I can't remember the name right now, but those Mama Somebody Stole the Last Piece of Chicken plays. Like,
I know what you're talking about.
You know, Mama Somebody Stole the Last Piece of Chicken. What are we gonna do?
I'm from the South, and they would tour down there, and I remember seeing the commercials for that.
All those plays.
Well, and this is another kind of, I feel myself getting in trouble even bringing this up, but people will say that gospel circuit, they call it, theater folks call it the Chitlin circuit.
I was about to say the Chitlin circuit. Yes, and you know what? I was a theater major. So at first I was like, my bar must just be higher. But it's not. That stuff is bad. It's trash. And it's insulting. And then you've got black people out here. Well, I go to the theater. No, you don't. You go to the circus. It's not even the circus. And, there is debate. At least in the circles that I run, about whether I'm bougie, and I am to a certain extent. So whatever, F you. And then I'm also from the country, so I can be bougie and country at the same time. Medea is trash. There's nothing else that you get from this whole conversation. Medea and Tyler Perry, and Tyler will probably come after me, and I bet you, because Tyler has ears everywhere, so you might not even get to air this episode because Tyler is so fucking sensitive. And he's going to shut this shit down. I'm on a rant.
Well, it's interesting that my friend, which of course I'm not going to name her now. I don't want him to go after her. But part of her, she said he's just angry. He's just so angry, and he hates women. And that was her perception. Well, yeah, I think that's obvious too.
I shouldn't get into that because of the people. But Tyler also hates.
But here's what I want to say, and this isn't on here. I'm going off book here because you talk about Medea, which is drag.
Yeah.
Tyler Perry and drag. I love RuPaul. What do you think about RuPaul? Because that's not Medea.
No.
And when he is in his female persona, that's what he wants to put out there is, and when he talks, when she talks, however, it is about being strong.
And sassy and fabulous and black.
To women as well.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what is. I know it's not the same category as Medea, but I'm wondering. Again, I'm this white girl, so my perception is going to be completely different.
I don't know how I feel about RuPaul. Like, when I think about the original, like not the original, but you remember when he had the song "You Better Work"? Mm-hmm. That was great. Like this black drag queen, wonderful. Now we've got Drag Race. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes things are on there that are offensive to the trans community and probably the gay people too. I don't really watch Drag Race. I'm going to get my gay card and my black card taken away from me today.
You're going to leave here without cards.
I'm going to leave here without cards. I'm going to be no one, nothing. It's fine. I am a strong black woman, and I can handle that shit. But I don't have a problem with. You know what? I'll say this. I don't have as much of a problem with Rue as I have with fucking Medea.
Well, I think they're coming at they're doing different things. They have different missions.
Yes.
I think. And so I totally, because I'm with you as far as your feelings with Medea, I am 110% with you. And I get that's more than 100%. I understand that.
I get it.
I have more percentage. Okay. that I can't stand Medea. But again, I do put them in two different categories. Oh, yeah. And but I was just, when I was looking at this, I'm like, okay, but where would you put RuPaul then?
Rue, I don't know. Like when Rue is clearly in popular culture, so are a lot of other drag queens. I don't have a big issue with Rue. Rue has said some things and has apologized for some things. And the other thing about this whole thing, is it's also some of this is generational, right?
Right.
And so Rue comes from a generation where you could say things and it's okay, and Rue gets it. Medea can't ever seem to get it. Like, let's stop this bullshit. And so maybe that's the difference between Tyler Perry and
RuPaul.
Rue.
Yeah.
You, like you said, it's pandering. You got the same old shtick.
Right. But I guess part of it is they are both putting out a perception of a woman.
Uh-huh.
And there is nobody, when he is on point, there's nobody who is more gorgeous than RuPaul. And just to me, I'm just, that is a beautiful woman.
And what's so funny is that there are people out there who have more problem with Rue because Rue is in the LGBT community. And, openly.
I was going to say.
Openly, hint, hint. You see that? Tyler coming after
hashtag.
us. He's coming.
Hashtag. You couldn't see me, but I just didn't say anything there.
Yeah.
That was hashtag and then blank.
Hashtag Tyler's coming after us.
Hashtag Medea hates me.
Fuck Medea. But, you know, people would just, they love Medea. And it's like, it's the same thing. But, you know, Tyler is this respectable black man in the community. And, you know.
Well, it's interesting, you know, and there might be a whole episode that comes later about drag and how, you know, femininity and drag kind of intersect. But you know when you're watching RuPaul that you're watching someone in costume, and their female persona is just that, it's a persona. But anyway, that kind of wraps up our conversation. Thank you so much, Amena, for joining us. Really, really enjoyed this conversation, and thanks so much.
And Eric was wrong. You were very funny and charming.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I just laugh at that. Oh, Eric is taking the long. Oh, he tilted his head to the
side.
Ooh.
Just letting that go. Just letting that go. Thank you, Amena, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I had a great time.
You know, Amena is delightful and definitely has opinions about things, which is why we like her.
She does.
Is, you know, she gets along with us really well in that way because we're not ones to hold back really either. But yeah, really fascinating conversation about how, again, even positive stereotypes can be a little limiting sometimes.
Well, I think that sometimes a person, whomever they are, whatever race, creed, national, whatever, you can sit there and you can yip yap about a certain topic, but it's really nice to talk to somebody who has something invested in it.
Sure, because the strong black woman archetype, I think it does things to black women who view and consume pop culture. I think it also does things to folks like us because we can view black women in our lives differently if we've been exposed to this one archetype over and over and over again. So it's a good reminder for white people, you know, to look at yet another strong black woman in pop culture and say, you know what? Not all black women are strong 100% of the time. Sometimes you're allowed to have an off day. But maybe we don't allow black women to have as many off days as others, partly because, not always, but partly because we have this pop culture archetype that's always there. So our final diagnosis on this.
Well, I think you need to look behind. You need to look beyond what is just put out there. That facade, that mask, that cookie, that Olivia Pope. Look behind that. That's what your real person is. This is just a character.
Yeah.
And we need to not look at that black woman at your office or on the street or behind the counter or wherever and put these fictional attributes on them automatically.
Yeah.
It's not fair.
Yeah, and you know what Amena would say is that what black women themselves need to do is also not look only to pop culture to say this is who I'm allowed to be, you know. And I think that's true for everyone. I mean, you know, we're all a part of a community that gets stereotyped somehow in the world and in pop culture specifically, and it's our job to look beyond that. But then it's also our job to look at how others are portrayed and say, you know, this isn't a perfect situation. Sometimes pop culture can be really helpful, and sometimes it can heal some wounds, and sometimes it can just, you know, pound something else into the ground.
But we just keep it in mind that this is entertainment.
Yeah.
And take it for that, but don't take it as a documentary all the time.
Yeah.
But she was funny. She was fun. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. Love Amena. Thank you, Amena, again for stopping on by. And this is Popperation. I'm Eric.
I'm Stacey.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Popperation with Eric and Stacey. Check out our website at popperationroom.com for links to our blog and other extras. Don't forget to subscribe to Popperation via iTunes, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, and other podcast locations. You can also follow at Popperation Room on Facebook and Twitter. Music provided by purpleplanet.com.